Fantasy football, bye week strategy for best ball drafts. Imagine building a team where your players' scores are automatically added up each week, without you changing lineups. That's how best ball leagues work, and bye weeks play a different role here. In traditional leagues, you worry about weekly lineups and managing players during their bye weeks. But in best ball leagues, you draft your entire team at once, and the best scoring players each week count toward your total. So, how do bye weeks fit into this puzzle? First, it's important to avoid having your quarterbacks and tight ends all off on the same week. These positions usually have fewer reliable starters, often just 2 or 3. If all your quarterbacks share the same bye week, you might score 0 at that position for that week, which can hurt your overall score. Spreading out their bye weeks helps keep your team more consistent across the season. Wide receivers and running backs are less sensitive to bye week overlap because you typically draft more of these players, sometimes 5 to 7 at each position. Having 2 players at the same position with the same bye week isn't a big deal, but having 3 or more can cause a noticeable drop in your weekly scoring potential. So, it's smart to try to avoid stacking too many players with the same bye week at these positions. In best ball leagues, bye weeks are less impactful overall because your total score is the sum of all weekly scores. Missing points in one week due to a bye can be offset by strong performances in other weeks. Some managers choose to ignore bye weeks altogether and focus purely on drafting the best talent without worrying about overlaps. This approach can work well if your team has enough depth. If you're building a team with multiple tight ends or quarterbacks, it's smart to pick players with different bye weeks. For example, if your first quarterback has a bye in week 7, selecting a second quarterback with a different bye week ensures you always have at least one active player at that position. This helps keep your scoring steady week to week. When drafting running backs and wide receivers, it's good to keep an eye on bye weeks but not obsess over them. Focus on talent first, but if you end up with many players sharing the same bye week, it could limit your scoring potential during that week. So, try to balance talent with bye week distribution, especially at scarce positions like quarterback and tight end. In practice, during your draft, track the bye weeks of your picks. If your first tight end has a week 6 bye, look for another tight end with a different bye week to cover that gap. For running backs and wide receivers, prioritize talent but be mindful if many share the same bye week, as it can reduce your scoring options during that week. To sum up, the key to bye week strategy in best ball leagues is to minimize overlap at positions with fewer starters, like quarterback and tight end. For wide receivers and running backs, roster depth makes bye week overlap less critical. Some managers focus on overall player quality and volume, trusting that strong weekly performances will carry them. But spreading out bye weeks at key positions can help keep your team scoring consistently and improve your chances of making the playoffs.